Hey 49er fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Really interesting video today giving you the 4 main reasons why I think San Francisco missed the postseason, really struggled this year, but I want to know your number 1 reason. Right now, before you see my top 4, go down in the comment section down below and type your answer to why you think was the number 1 reason San Francisco ended up, technically not making the postseason and having one of the worst records we've seen from them based on the Super Bowl year last year. All right, you saw the title of the video, you saw the opening here. Let's go and jump into Thomas Mott's 4 reasons why the San Francisco 49ers struggled this year. Some very obvious, some not so obvious. Let's start with the number 1, probably most obvious one that a lot of you guys will comment down below, and that is that everyone got injured. Like, literally, everybody got injured. There are plenty of people who can sit here and say, there was this problem, there was that problem, there was this player who didn't play well, and there was that bad play call. No, listen. The number 1 reason, we all understand, San Francisco, one of the most injured teams in the entire National Football League with a bunch of key injuries. Look at this list. This isn't even all the Niners who got injured. It's just the 10 biggest ones who got injured. Some missed the entire year. Some missed most of the year. Bosa, Ford, Deebo Samuel was in and out the entire year. Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, Richard Sherman, George Kittle, Jason Verrett, Jalen Hurd, Solomon Thomas. I mean, goodness gracious, there were so many injuries on the San Francisco 49ers this year. We can all sit here and say they would have been a playoff team if they had not been injured. It's easy to say, but I'll be honest, it's truthful. And I fully believe San Francisco would at least been battling for a wild card spot had the majority of these injuries not had happened. Now, some of them, like Verrett goes down, you can overcome Jason Verrett going down, you overcome Solomon Thomas, Jalen Hurd, but Bosa and Deebo Samuel basically being injured the entire year. Jimmy Garoppolo, how about that one? That one's kind of important. These are just injuries you cannot overcome. And honestly, the fact they were able to be as competitive as they were in some of these football games, despite only winning 6, maybe 7 games, this is pre-Seattle we're filming this, so who knows what will happen on Sunday, is quite impressive. But I think we can all sit back and say, hey, if they would be healthy in 2021, they should be able to get right back to where they were at least last year in terms of being competitive in the NFC West. They were not the only team that had a bunch of injuries. Look at this list. Niners had a bunch of injuries, missed the postseason. Eagles, bunch of injuries, no postseason. Cowboys, at the time of filming this video, technically still alive, but we all understand the Cowboys' injuries have completely obliterated them. Patriots, a lot of people opted out. They've had some injuries as well, but it shows teams with injuries didn't win a lot of games. Shocker, shocker. I mean, who would have thought that is the case? I'll make the argument the number 1 injury on San Francisco this year was probably Nick Bosa. I think he changed the entire dynamic of the defensive line. Going into not only last year, rookie double-digit sacks, but this year expecting even more. They let go of DeForest Buckner mainly because they felt so good about not only Nick Bosa demanding double teams, but freeing up options for Eric Armstead to go ahead and get one-on-one opportunities and make a lot more plays. Bosa goes out, Armstead gets double teams, and as we saw, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on, Eric Armstead was not nearly the player that he was being a team captain in 2019. I think the Garoppolo injury also had a massive impact. People are torn on Garoppolo. He played a little bit, but really wasn't there essentially all year long, and I think that right now, 6 wins, the majority of those coming with backup quarterbacks, you could have at least gotten to 7 or 8 wins despite all the injuries if you would have had your number 1 single caller and play caller Jimmy Garoppolo in there at the quarterback spot. So, of course, injuries is number 1. That one is obvious. And I'll ask you guys this down below. Answer the question, what's one player you want to stay healthy in 2021? Out of the list that I gave you, is there a player on this list that you go, please don't get injured at all next year? We need you. Maybe it's Bosa. Maybe it's somebody else. We'll see from you guys down below in the comment section. All right, injuries again, the obvious one, the one we're all going to be pointing to. Let's get into some more detailed ones here that we might not be thinking about. I honestly think the offensive line is number 2 here in terms of the fact that they underachieved their skill. Now, yes, they had plenty of injuries. You see the current depth chart is not what it should have been going into preseason. Justin School, more specifically, starting there at right guard, and he's been kind of moved around when Williams had his head injury and came out. So the offensive line obviously has dealt with their own injuries, which goes back to number 1. But you can look at let's just go rushing stats. They've not been the same in terms of run blocking and pass protection. This year, 14th in the NFL in rushing at 120 yards per game, 14 TDs, and 4.44 yards per carry. Go back to last year, and they were number 2 in the NFL in rushing with almost 20 more yards rushing per game, nearly double the TDs, 23 versus 14 and 4.6 yards per carry. Yes, I know health was another factor, right? It goes all back to injuries. Mostert not healthy, Coleman not healthy, but the Niner depth chart at running back was supposed to be very, very good. But the offensive line, even when some of those guys were in there, when Mostert would kind of squeak in and game out, Jeff Wilson, they gave you flashes of the former greatness of being a great running team, but they were never a fantastic running team really the entire year in 2020. I think this is something that you got to look at here in terms of their I guess, lack of success as an offense, even though Nick Mullins was the quarterback for the majority of the year, and he struggled a lot. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. This is a run-first offense, and when you're middle of the pack in rushing versus being number 1 or number 2 in rushing, it takes a lot of wins off the table, and that, to me, was a big factor in why San Francisco was able to struggle. Mostert, we mentioned it again. If he would have been healthy all year long, I think you might have been better than 14, so you can't just blame the offensive line, but you put the film on, the offensive line did struggle a lot more than they did in 2019 here in 2020. That's led to a lot of people debating if O-linemen should be, a top priority in the draft in 2021. I did a draft needs video a couple of, days ago now, maybe a week ago now. And offensive line was not up there in the top, cornerback, defensive line, pass rusher, wide receiver. But I think it'd still be an option. Would you guys want them to draft an offensive lineman at some point in the 2021 NFL draft? Type wide down below for yes, type N down below for no. I want to hear from you guys right there. Before we keep going, quick shout out to our sponsor, BetUS, here on this video today. They still have great promos going on if you guys want to get into the world of sports betting. Even though the football season is almost over, although playoffs are coming around, you want to bet on those. But NBA, any other real major sport that's coming up, you guys can bet on with our friends at BetUS. Do it through our link, though. That way you get the deposit bonus. Chatsports.com/49bet is the place to go. Whenever you sign up, put $100 down, use our promo code Niners125. It'll turn into a 125% deposit bonus, meaning you put down $100 and it turns into kind of magically with the promo code $225 for your betting pleasure. Okay, number 3 here on why the 49ers struggled this year, turnovers. I mean, goodness gracious, they turned the ball over so much in 2020, and it was a mixture of not just fumbles and not just Nick Mullins throwing picks, although he did a lot of that, but overall, this team turned the ball over way too many times and did not turn the ball over enough defensively, and we have seen year in and year out, good football teams protect the football, and the Niners did not do that, and one of the reasons, again, why they were bad in 2020. First off, drop a like if you guys do agree they turned the ball over too many times. Ball security needs to become a serious priority in the offseason going into next year. Give me a thumbs up if you guys agree with this. I want to see like 200, 300 thumbs up because obviously it should be a number 1 priority for both offense and defense. Look at the difference here. 2019, one of the best defenses in the league. They had 23 total turnovers. Sorry, this is offensive. I got mixed up. Offensively, they were very, very good in terms of turnovers, in terms of total turnovers. Yes, Garoppolo threw a couple picks last year, but overall, 23 total, 13 picks, 10 fumbles, but a +4 turnover differential, meaning the defense, as I was trying to say, was able to turn the ball over enough to compensate the Jimmy Garoppolo picks that we saw later on in the year. Fast forward to this year, 30 total turnovers, 17 more. They threw 4 more picks and 3 more fumbles, but had a -10 turnover differential, meaning while the offense continued to turn the ball over at a higher rate, the defense did not get the ball back to the offense as they did back in 2019. Mullins was a big reason that this happened. He threw a lot of these interceptions. We're not going to sit here and put all the blame on him because there still were 13 fumbles, but Mullins was a key factor in this, and so I think you kind of piggyback onto the Garoppolo conversation a couple minutes ago and say whoever the quarterback is in 2021, less turnovers, less sacks too. I mean, the offensive line did that as well. Less fumbles, but less interceptions is going to be a big factor because this offense can hum, and this team can be very, very good if they're healthy, if they're running the ball well, and not turning the football over as much. That's got to be a priority going into next year. Okay, number 4 here on the reasons why the 49ers struggled. And listen, I'm sure there are plenty of other ones I haven't hit on, but these are the top 4 in my opinion. The pass rush disappeared in 2020. Completely gone. Now, I know what you're saying, Thomas, wait a second. This is because Nick Bosa was injured, so it goes back to number 1. And yes, that's what I said. Injuries were the main issue with this football team. But even with that being said, the fact that they were unable to have more than 4 players get more than 1.5 sacks, or really 5 players more than 1.5 sacks, shows that this defense was just nowhere near where it should have been. I could have said the secondary was bad because the secondary was bad, but to me the secondary was really bad because the defensive line could not get to the quarterback, leaving the secondary not enough time to go ahead and survive in coverage. Hyder was the only bright spot they had in terms of sacks, 8.5. He was great. Re-sign him, bring him back, big fan. Armstead, big disappointment, 3.5. Deion Jones, DJ Jones, not expecting much there, 3 apiece. And then I guess Jordan Willis had 2.5, K'Wan Williams, 2 off nickel blitzes, and Javon Kinlaw had 1.5. But it's just 28 total sacks. Think about this. 28 total sacks in 2020. You think about that and you go, okay, it's middle of the pack. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Compare that to last year. 48 in 2019, almost double the amount of sacks in 2019 what they had in 2020. The pass rush is so important going into not just the past 5 years, the past 10 years of the National Football League, really, I guess since the inception of the forward pass, but you got to be able to get to the quarterback, you got to be able to disrupt his throwing motion, disrupt his throwing lanes, and make him second guess, double pump, and take sacks, because that forces turnovers. We talked about turnovers earlier on. When the Niners are unable to get to the quarterback, it left those, I think, sometimes injured corners, no Sherman, and then you have a mixture of Verrett and Williams and everybody else to have to be on islands and stay in coverage way too long. And that just resulted in way too many quarterbacks having way too many big days and way too many wide receivers playing well at the same time. So maybe I should have added an extra one here and said, oh, well, corners were bad as well. But I think injuries were a big problem with that. Yes, they missed Nick Bosa, but this defensive line should still have been able to get some sort of pressure with Javon Kinlaw, with Kerry Hyder, with Eric Armstead, and the mixture of pass rushers they had there in 2020. Do I think that they can be better in 2021? Dog, because like I said, Nick Bosa is going to be back. That creates a lot more double teams for him and a lot more one-on-one opportunities for Kinlaw and for Armstead and for whoever else plays defensive end, probably not D Ford, but you get my point. That is going to be a massive factor. And so, as I said, everything ties into number one, but the fact that the pass rush disappeared in 2020 was a massive, massive reason why San Francisco was unable to win a lot of the closer games that they had and close teams out in the fourth quarter, which they did very, very well during the Super Bowl run back in 2019. Before we go ahead and end this video, make sure you guys are subscribed. We're getting into the offseason. Obviously, Seattle game coming up on Sunday. We'll have full coverage on that, news, rumors, as we always do. But we're going to get into a lot more of the offseason news and rumors, what the 49ers could be doing to improve themselves. And we're going to do plenty more videos. Honestly, heat things up during the offseason. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the Best 49er YouTube channel on the platform. That way, you're up to date even when they're not playing on the football field, but they're getting all the stuff done internally. That way, they have chances to make another big run here in 2021. There you go. Ultimately, for today here on the 49ers Report. To me, it's just interesting to go back and go, okay, all the expectations week one, and then where we're at now week 17. It's amazing the things that have led us to the moment where we're at, where the 49ers currently have 9 losses, and will probably finish the year with double-digit losses with a loss to Seattle Seahawks on Sunday. If they could have stayed healthy, if they could have turned the ball over less, had better O-line play, run the ball better, had better D-line play, better cornerback play, they would have been better, but that's a lot to ask. And now the question is, can they get better at these things in the offseason, whether it's by signing people, cutting people, trading for people, whatever it is, to get back to their former self? I think the answer is yes, they will, and yes, they can. We're going to wait and see how they do it here during the offseason with the San Francisco 49ers. Ultimately, for today here in the 49ers Report, I'm your host, Thomas Mott. We go ahead and sign off. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day.